a really warm welcome on this very fresh day to our conversation station. That's we have with Kerry from the Grab Trust out in Oban. Hopefully, you can all see that. We are hosting this as part of Community Knowledge Matters. For those I'm sure who might be new to the network, we'll set a little bit of context to that. But we've here are some of the values that we have as an organization and as a network around equity, inclusivity, collaboration, respect, and integrity. And we're also going to put into the chat now both these values, but also our beliefs as a network, which the network is all about bringing and celebrating community-led research and exploring the dynamics of community research and making them more equitable, more inclusive, more collaborative, respectful, and integral. No, that's not the word. Full of integrity. That's the word that we're looking for. And so just in terms of what we mean in practice to set the space for today. And those of you who might be new to the network, very much welcome. This is a space where we have a place focus. We are very much coming from the Highlands and Islands, but those from across the UK and further afield are very much welcome. And we have our online community of practices. We have our spotlight conversations, and we have new opportunities to build capacity and do collective advocacy because we want to support more equitable community-led research to inform both practice, support communities, and influence policy as well. And then finally, maybe this we will put these dates in the diary, but we have our next community practices over the next couple of months. So these are going to be a bit more discussive, a bit more about building collaborations. And then we also have our next conversation station session on the 17th of December, so just before Christmas, with Leap Sports Scotland. And Gavin has just joined us on the call as well, and talking about their work looking at LGBTQ plus inclusive sports spaces across the Highlands as well, which is going to be really, really fascinating and exciting. So I think with all that in mind, oh, and if you're not already on the network, most of you might have been signed up already. There's a little QR link, but we'll put the link in the chat as well. So that's enough space setting from me, I think. I'm going to carry on. It's been a real pleasure working with Kerry. This has been part of a slightly a different program originally. So this is work that was originally funded by UK Research and Innovation, UKRI, with our Highlands and Islands Community Climate Change Community Grants and Network. We never did quite get a shorter name for it. And so this program comes, and I'm sure Kerry will mention this, from a different pilot program looking at how we can fund communities to lead research, where the communities get the money and then we partner them with researchers. And I remember the process of working with Kerry, linking in with Marilyn, and having that real spark of conversation. And what you'll hear next has all evolved from that. But what's happened now is that program has finished for now, but we are transitioning it into thinking about our Community Knowledge Matters network, which historically has very much a focus on mental well-being. But even throughout the network, there's always been a real strong identification of the intersections, particularly in the Highlands and Islands, but of course everywhere, of how climate and mental well-being intersect and can't be separated. And so we've just set up a new working group as well to look at that link between climate action and mental well-being. If you're interested, Kerry is part of that as well. But yeah, just to understand that setting, I will stop sharing my screen. And Kerry, I'm going to spotlight you for everyone. I believe you're going to share your slides. Thank you so much for having me. And I'll looking forward to your talk.
Thank you very much. Okay, so hopefully everyone can see that and still hear me. And yeah, thank you. Thank you very much for having me here today to talk about community-led research, in particular the reusable cup trials that I did. So a little bit of background information just about me. I studied ecology, so my background's much more the sort of numerical side of science, while still caring about the environment. I'm a very keen scuba diver, and that led me quite nicely into the work I currently do in the Beaches and Marine Litter project, where I get to share the wonders of the ocean with people and do education all around protecting the seas. So it all began with the Grab Trust. This is the charity that I work for. It stands for the Group for Recycling in Argyll and Bute. We're a small Scottish charity and our aim is to protect the environment in Argyll and Bute. particularly by addressing waste and recycling issues. As Lewis mentioned, we were lucky enough to join the Highlands and Islands Community Climate Change Grant in 2022, and that's what funded and made this project entirely possible. So we did a bit of background thinking, and we've always got lots of ideas as to what needs doing and what we'd like to do. So here are some examples of the beach litter that I regularly clean up as part of my job. And some facts here for you. So 8 million metric tons of global waste enters the ocean from land-based sources, and plastic in particular, that's each year. And plastic kills about 1 million seabirds and 100,000 sea mammals, turtles, and fish every year. We also know that there's around 200 million disposable coffee cups used each year just in Scotland. And single-use cups create 4,000 tons of waste every year, again, just in Scotland. And it might come as no surprise, but single-use cups have a significantly higher environmental impact than reusable cups in the long term. Study after study has shown this. So this helped us to narrow down our ideas. I'm very lucky in Argyll Butte. We've got data going back to 1994 from the Marine Conservation Society's Beachwatch surveys. And we can see here on the graph, don't worry too much about the details, but the mean number of cups recorded per survey, we can see has increased. The red in particular shows the plastic polystyrene cups. I would like to highlight the biggest reason that red suddenly appears in big chunks is because before 2016, there wasn't a category for plastic cups. It just got lumped in with general plastic. But as soon as there was a category specifically for plastic cups, it became clear that these are quite a big problem. And when we consider that Argyll Butte has a coastline of 3,723 kilometres, and an average of about 3.5 cups per 100 metres of beach. 100 metres is what the survey distance is for the Beachwatch surveys. A little bit of maths gives us that there will be around 130,305 cups on beaches in Argyll Butte in any given year. So that is an awful lot of cups just for Argyll Butte beaches. So once we'd come up with this rough idea of something we'd like to tackle with the Highlands and Islands Community Climate Change Grant Project, we were teamed up with researchers. So to introduce the researchers, we had lovely Professor Marilyn Carrigan from Heriot-Watt University in the Edinburgh Business School. And she brought along our bonus researcher, Professor Victoria Wells, who works for the School for Business and Society at the University of York. So we got really lucky that we got 2 researchers as opposed to just 1. The methodology, we loosely followed the 5 steps of community-based social marketing. Me being more of a ecology numbers trained person, I had no idea what this was before, but this was where the researchers really came into their own. They guided us and provided all the information and actually had names for the things that we kind of knew but didn't know were actual proper things. So the 5 steps was identifying the behavior that we wanted to change, in this case reducing the amount of single-use cups being used, identifying the barriers and the benefits to doing this change, develop some strategies, pilot the program, and ours kind of rolled together with point number 5, 4 and 5. The pilot and implementing the program kind of blurred. So I've got a bit of a timeline here. It all sort of really started back in April 2022 when the project was put together. We had a rough idea and started recruiting small businesses to join us in the project. At about the same time, we were identifying and being matched up with the researchers to join us. We did some evidence collection around the community. So we used things like Facebook, the Marine Conservation Society Beachwatch data. We had discussions with shop owners and spoke to members of the community and as many stakeholders as possible to get the background information. We had hoped, as you can see, the planned planning and setup time there was fairly short, and you can see the actual planning and setup continued beyond our ideal time frame. But we hosted a pre-trial meeting online for all the businesses and community to meet the researchers and talk about what we were hoping to achieve, how they wanted it to work, and get the before picture. We also asked the businesses to complete a pre-intervention questionnaire so that we'd have a before to later compare to our after. We very much wanted the businesses to be proactive and participate in the project and how it would be created to suit them. We didn't want to just be telling them, okay, you've got to do this, that, and the other. We wanted them to have a say and feel like they could suggest ideas that would work in their business. Things really got going when eCoffee donated 2,500 reusable coffee cups to the project. This was fantastic of eCoffee to do this. And we provided these free to the businesses, with the caveat that they had to sell these cups at £4. Normally these cups retail at £12, but we felt £4 was a much more reasonable price and it would still allow the businesses to restock sustainably. And we can see when the trial actually began, a little bit later than our original hope, but it gave us a chance to do as much PR as we possibly could, and also for the academics to come and visit the businesses in person and speak to the business owners, the staff, some of the customers, as well as the community out and about. During the trial, the businesses were to encourage people to bring their own cups. The whole point of the trial was to encourage use of reusable cups, not just to sell the e-coffee cups. So if people could bring their own reusable cup, then that was amazing. If they didn't have their own cup, then they would be offered whether they'd like the option of buying an e-coffee cup instead of single use. The businesses also recorded the cup type usage on a tally sheet. We hoped that a tally sheet would be nice and simple for the businesses and any of the staff to just quickly do during their day. We also provided posters, printed leaflets, and arranged a scavenger hunt around town because we wanted as many people as possible to be aware of the trial and to think about participating. And we went along with the sort of catch line, have you got your cup? Because the whole point was to get people to remember to bring their cup and actually use it. Most of us do have a reusable cup, just usually sits in a cupboard at home. And then at the end of the trial, which was in September 2022, we had post-intervention questionnaire, collected in all the tally sheets, and had a final roundup visit by the academics to try and bring everything together and get the after views of the businesses for how they thought the trial went. So we approached 23 businesses in the town of Oban, asking them if they would like to participate in this project. Unfortunately, only 5 agreed to participate, and a further 3 did agree to contribute some information towards the trial, but they didn't want to participate fully. So that was the first slight disappointment. We teamed up with the local high school to organise the scavenger hunt. The pupils made some wonderful ceramic sea creatures, which were put around the town at the various different stops that you can see on the map there for the scavenger hunt. And these also acted as the prizes, along with an e-coffee cup, for the competition that the scavenger hunt was. The pupils, as you can see in the larger picture here, also joined us for doing our launch event to launch the cup trial. Unfortunately, soon after this picture was taken, it poured with rain and started blowing a gale, blew everything over, and we rapidly had to pack things up and disappear. So that was the next disappointment of the trial. Our grand opening was a very, very literal washout. We did get into as many newspapers as we could locally, and the Edinburgh Business School newsletter did a little feature on us, which was lovely. And here's some examples of the cups out in the wild in some of the businesses, along with our posters and the little flyers that we gave to businesses so customers could read more about the trial while they were waiting on their drinks. So onto the data. I'm not going to spend too long looking at this graph because it's not the most fun part of the whole story, but this is the data for the 5 businesses from their tally sheets. We can see in green at the bottom there, solid green, is the number of e-coffee cups that were sold each month or used. In the solid blue, we have how many other reusable cups. And then with the dotted red line is the single-use cups. But I would like to highlight that the dotted red line is for the second axis on the right-hand side, which is a whole order of magnitude very different from the reusable cups. So if we take August as an example, we can see there's about 130 reusable cups used during August, but for a single use, it was 6,673 cups. So a very big difference. I am proud to be able to say that reusable cup use doubled, if I'm putting on a positive PR spin, from 1% to 2% of all the reusable cups, or sorry, of all the cups used in Oban. So it was something, but not near what we'd hoped for. I have a little video here summarizing the results from the Oban trial. Okay, so as you've probably noticed, there have been quite a few challenges during our project. So some of the biggest ones included that there are currently no facilities to recycle single-use cups in our Argyll Butte, meaning that paper, compostable and plastic cups alike all just get thrown into landfill. And people seem to be unaware of this issue. There is a lack of guilt. People assume that the cups will be recycled if they put them in the recycling bin. And to summarize kind of the whole waste system, due to a combination of the processing system being unfit for purpose, so many different ways that things can be disposed of, landfill, composting, recycling, energy from waste, etc., and customer or public confusion over how to dispose of things properly, along with a lack of consistent labeling, the whole system just doesn't work. So bioplastics, I would like to quickly highlight the issue with bioplastics in case anyone hasn't already noticed this little catch. So bioplastics are plastic-like materials that are made from plant materials. Vegware is a well-known example. However, they're not all biodegradable. You've probably seen this symbol, the little seedling symbol that says it's compostable, but this actually means it needs industrial composting, which is high temperature and not the same as your home compost. This is where there's a huge amount of confusion. Argyll and Bute in particular does not have this infrastructure. Most of these types of items go to landfill. If people get confused and think, oh, it's a paper or plastic cup or tub that can be recycled, it ends up causing contamination in the recycling chain. Or, of course, you get people looking at it going, oh, it says it's biodegradable. I'll just tuck it under this bush. That means it'll be gone in a couple of weeks because, you know, it'll break down. That doesn't happen. And we end up with more litter on our streets. So this is a huge point of confusion. As always, the best thing we can do is try to use reusable alternatives rather than compostable labeled items. So some quotes and feedback here from various businesses that we worked with. One business was saying, COVID has put us back 10 years. It's too scary to be bold. We did initially ask businesses if they could try to go single-use cup free, but none of the businesses were willing to do this. They all wanted to continue to have single-use cups as an option. They were too scared of losing customers. This was soon after COVID and all the lockdowns and everything. So businesses had had a really tough couple of years and they didn't want to scare away any customers by insisting that they had to have a cup, a reusable cup, or bring a cup. Another one said, I think the biggest difficulty we have with encouraging reusables is that tourists often don't want to carry a keep cup around with them. Oban is a very big tourist town during the summer, so the timing of our trial was quite a large factor. There was a lot of tourists in Oban. And as this business noticed, many of the tourists just don't want to have to carry anything else around with them. Another business who thought they were doing a great thing, they thought they were being as eco-conscious as they could within reason, said that they do use vegware, although this now seems futile when there's no proper recycling facility in the area. It seems to me that many businesses have already made the change they need to make by using vegware, so they've moved away from plastic. At least half of the takeaway cups that they serve are disposed of in the bins at their premises, so it would be really easy for them to facilitate change if they could get over the final hurdle, that is getting those cups to an actual recycling facility. They feel they're being let down by the rest of the waste process and that they're doing their part. Another business was saying, we've only got a small lamppost bin adjacent to Boots for literally hundreds of people that congregate outside our business to smoke, eat and drink. So this is just touching on the huge issue of council funding, lack of infrastructure, the argument over does more bins help or should we have less bins? This is a very big issue. And of course, lots of angry customers complaining about not providing plastic because they know plastic's bad in general, but no one seems to be able to provide a truly biodegradable or compostable option. So these folks have learned about the issues with bioplastics and the fact that they're not composted in Argyll and Bute. So of course they are as angry as the customers. One volunteer, and for this one, there is small areas in Argyll and Bute, particularly more central. So Helensburgh is much nearer Glasgow. So they are an exception in Argyll and Bute where they do get food composting. Most of Argyll and Bute don't. So this volunteer lives there and they said that they checked whether the councillor was happy for them to publicise that compostable cups could be placed in the food waste bin. It seems quite logical because the food waste is going to industrial composting, so why can't we put the cups in? Unfortunately, the answer was no. They don't want to confuse the message by telling people that they can put anything other than food in the food bins. So again, touching on a huge issue to do with how much can the council trust the public to sort their waste appropriately. Now, from all our findings, I'm thrilled to say that we've managed to bring it all together to our research paper that you can see here that has been published in the European Journal of Marketing. We'll share links and there's a code at the end that you can access this paper. So you're very welcome to have a read through that and all the issues that we came across and reasons why. But it was a very enlightening project. In Helensburgh, the following year, we were lucky enough to get capacity building fund to enable us to try to expand on the lessons learned from our project as much as possible. And as part of that, we did a repeat trial, but this time in Helensburgh, a much less touristy town and a bit earlier in the year. So in Helensburgh, we managed to get 7 businesses that were willing to participate. And same idea on this graph showing the results from Helensburgh. We can see in green the e-coffee cups that were used each month. In blue, the total reusable cups. And again, in red and on a very different axis, the single-use cups. In the multiples of thousands. But in Helensburgh, it was 5% reusable cups, so significantly higher than our 1 to 2% in Oban. I have a little video here summarizing the Helensburgh results for you. So again, not quite the major impact that we were hoping to have, but we learned a lot of lessons and we've been working really hard to share the lessons we've learned, including me being here today, to help everyone else learn from our project and hopefully save you some of the horrible hard work. So we presented our results at the Academy of Marketing conference in Birmingham. The researchers have done various talks at different universities and more academic institutes. I've been doing various talks such as this one, and we were thrilled to be nominated for the Harriet Watt Principles Research Impact and Engagement Award. We didn't win, but even just being nominated was a thrill. So what next? We used the capacity building grant to organise a rubbish summit in Oban, where we wanted to bring all the stakeholders from the community, the businesses, the council and policy makers, the recycling facility folks all together to present our results of what we found and try to get some discussion started for how to address this issue. Off the back of this, the researchers, you can see Marilyn and Victoria in the picture there. We also had Zero Waste Scotland and Keep Scotland Beautiful joining us for the Rubbish Summit. And off the back of this, the researchers teamed up with Zero Waste Scotland and Keep Scotland Beautiful, who have been doing other trials in Scotland, to bring together the results from all these trials that we've done to try and get the big picture lessons from across Scotland. So we're currently working on sharing the results and getting the journal paper published for this wider multi-trial results. But to bring together things that went well, things that could have been improved, and also the things that didn't work. It's often just as important to know what doesn't work as it is to know what does. So my experience, and I'm more than happy to talk more about any of it when we get to the discussions, but very briefly, my experience was that I had really high hopes at the start. I thought, initially I really wanted to address all single-use food-to-go items, but we rapidly had to narrow that down to just single-use cups. And I had grand visions of having Oban as the first town to go completely single-use cup-free for at least that summer, if not in future. Unfortunately, as you saw from our results, that didn't quite happen, and a town in Ireland has since beat us to that claim to fame. I found it was really, really hard work doing the trial, working with all the businesses. There was so much fear of change among the businesses, among policyholders, even among customers. And particularly at that time after COVID, there was still the debate over whether reusable or single use is more hygienic. Results and studies have since shown that reusable is actually more hygienic because it gets washed, whereas a single use cup's been through many different hands in the whole manufacturing and shipping process before it gets to you on the counter. And the biggest barrier and key to the whole thing is convenience. We're all living really busy lives. We've got so many other things to worry about that remembering our cup is very low on our priority list generally. So having things that are convenient, it needs to be the no-brainer, just easiest thing to do for it to work best. I would like to say that Marilyn has now retired, but she sent us this lovely feedback saying that she has such great fun working with me and the Grab Trust the last couple of years on these projects. She says it was one of the best experiences on a research project that she's had. It was an absolute thrill to work with both Marilyn and Victoria. And again, more than happy to speak more about working with the researchers during the questions, but both sides, me, the community group, the community, and the researchers all absolutely loved working together on these projects, despite all the challenges that we came across. So what now? I'm thrilled to say that the Circular Economy Scotland Bill was passed unanimously by the Scottish Parliament in June 2024. And right now, as I speak, there is a consultation open, a government consultation on charging for single-use disposable beverage cups. We, the Grab Trust, have submitted our findings. We've included the report that we wrote from the first trial and some data from the second trial. And just a wee reminder that the Marine Conservation Society's Beach Clean programme, so that's the Beach Watch data that we showed earlier, they have recorded an average drop of 80% in carrier bags found washed up on UK beaches over the last decade since the bag charges were introduced. So we know that putting a charge on single-use things does have a benefit for the environment by stopping the waste, or at least reducing the waste. So the hope is that by putting this charge on single-use cups, we can have hopefully an 80% drop, if not more, in the number of single-use cups being disposed of. So this consultation closes on the 14th November, which is this Thursday. So please, after this presentation, follow the link and have your say on the consultation to encourage the government to put on a charge and make it a reasonable charge. They've also got questions about whether schools should be exempt. completely my personal opinion, but I do not think schools should be exempt from this. I think schools is the exact place where we need to set good behaviour right from the start. So schools should be using reusable cups. So that is the habit of our future generations. Quick reminder that your choice really does matter. You can contribute to scenes on beaches like this or get yourself a nice reusable cup. There's so many out there, and chances are you already have some in your cupboard. Please just try and remember to take it with you and use it. Top tip for the summer, it's also really good for getting your scoops of ice cream in. So, final question, what are you going to do about it? We've all got various issues in our communities and things that really annoy us when we see them on the street. Have a think, how wasteful is your home or place of work or community? And what could you do or work to change to make it as easy as possible for people to act more responsibly? As I said, from all our trials, convenience is key. Where is litter building up? And chances are the easiest thing to do would be to put a bin in that location. So have a think, and I hope it sparks some ideas. But just to round up, there's the QR code if you want to access the journal article. Hopefully it's also been shared in the chat, the link. My email and the email addresses of the researchers are both there. I forgot to change Marilyn's address, but obviously she's no longer answering her email since she's retired. But Victoria and I are still more than happy to answer questions. And thank you very much for having me here today, and love to hear your questions.
A massive thank you, Kerry. That's been amazing. What a whistle-stop tour. I know there's so much learning and process that you've summarized here. Amazing. I feel, yeah, it's so exciting. And, obviously, yeah, I think even just hearing it all presented back in the videos have really brought it to life in a way, which even, I think, imagine our eating ice cream and you had your cup ready and I loved it when I went over. Okay, so questions. I guess maybe I can start with one. I guess it's the facilitator's privilege. I guess, yeah, I'd be really interested. You touched a little bit upon it, and I remember when you had a few different conversations with a few different researchers, and there was a real click with Marilyn, and then that brought in Victoria as well. And I guess you kind of touched on this, this is a different methodology from what you would have been familiar with, I guess. And then you had the evidence building grants. Sorry, not the evidence, the capacity building grants, which gave you that time and space, and then the wrote paper. So I guess I'm just interested now thinking about the wider work you're doing with the Grab Trust. Like, has that changed the way that you might approach future work in terms of thinking about some of the skills or the kind of ideas that you developed through working with the researchers?
Yeah, absolutely. I'd say the biggest thing is that I try to manage my own expectations a lot more. And also just take things in my stride. Just whatever's going to happen is going to happen. I can't control the entire world. As much as it seems logical and sensible to me that everyone should remember their cup, we've all got so much going on. It's completely understandable. And the researchers were really good at that reminded me my job at the charity is to try and get that change. We're out there to make an impact and keep the beaches clean, whereas the researchers were there much more to study it, learn what's going on, and then evaluate that. So they're much better at sitting back and just taking in what's happening, whereas I much more had the mindset of, well, we're trying to get a change here. And yeah, they were super supportive and good at the whole, as you say, the more social science side of things. I still don't know the proper names for most of social sciencey stuff. But being able to tie, I quite like a nice spreadsheet and all the data and numbers and things, and nice graph, get the hard figures on it. But most people don't like that. They'd rather have a nice story or some pretty pictures or something. So being able to blend those two by taking what I loved with what the researchers know of the community and what works with other people really helped. So even bringing those videos together, I very much more had the mindset on of, okay, need to make this for the wider public, not just throwing numbers at people and trying to be super logical, because people aren't like that.
That's scary. So it's almost like bringing that different context and that kind of, yeah, even just a different perspective, I think, and supporting you through that, because I appreciate that it takes its own toll. as well.
Yes, they were hugely supportive because I was banging my head, stressing, pulling my hair out, going, "We're not doing as good as I wanted." The
Mhm.
researchers were very much just like, "No, that's good. That's part of the process. It means we're finding the problems."
Mm. I remember that came up really strongly, even in some of the community practices. So we brought together a lot of the different projects that we funded, and again, I think that was, hopefully that was helpful. And I see
Yeah.
Danielle here, so I'm a little bit like I don't want to put you on the spot, Danielle, from a different project who happens to be in Oban, but if there was any coming from a different project, living in Oban, what was your kind of feel about the cup trial?
Yeah, no, I saw it all over the place and I was really excited about it. Telling lots of people about it, and um, most people I've spoke to kind of knew that it was going on like that. Yeah, it just seemed really positive. Yeah. Um, yeah, and I obviously had been in the meetings with Kerry, so I knew what she was working on. But I didn't. But hearing your talk, I didn't. To me, that sounds unbelievably successful, and I think um, like maybe you didn't get people to reduce their single-use cups as much as you wanted, but um, the project seems really successful, and I think I didn't realize how successful it was. So it's really exciting to hear.
Thanks, Danielle. No, 100%. And I think that's, a 1 to 2%, that's doubling and let's face it, these were small grants. These were relational grants to allow you to explore, and it was £5,000 for the first round that went to yourself, Kerry. And then I think it was a little bit more in terms of some of the resources, but then also you had the building capacity grants for £2,000. That's an incredible impact that you've made for that, and for the work that you've done there. I appreciate you didn't quite get the title, but it's on the step there. Um, there's a question in the chat, and then we'll go to Lauren maybe. So there's one from Liz. So what are you most proud of from the project? So maybe to give you some time to think about that. And then there's another one from Liam. How many times would a reusable cup would need to be used to offset its heavier weight, more material? So that's a bit more of a technical question. And then we'll go to Lauren. So yeah.
Okay. Most proud of from the project, I'd say on a personal level, it's getting out there and working much more with people in the community in the wider sense. Through my job, I do work with the community and I work particularly with schools, but it tended to be very specific groups. So it'd be like the school or the brownies or church or well-being group. It would be a specific group who maybe the organizer was interested and thought, yeah, it's a great little idea, we'll get them into a session, but the audience themselves are kind of captive. They're there whether they want to be or not, especially in the schools. Whereas this was much more me going out into the wild and asking people, would you like to participate, especially the business owners, when I know they're super busy and struggling as is, and learning and seeing about their whole other aspect and view of the world and why it's not working. Because in my head, as I said at the start, I thought, well, it's obvious, it's a no-brainer, it's common sense and logical that everyone should just use their reusable cups. It saves everyone money, it's good for the environment. What's there to lose? But working with those other community people and the business owners and just the general public really forced me to consider just how complicated everything really is. So I'd say most proud of is almost doing like a complete mind switch on myself. I was so sure at the start, and then by the end of it, I was like, oh, I was so wrong. So yeah, I'm quite proud that I was able to do that because I know so many people that really stick their heels in and go, well, it shouldn't be that way. And part of me still thinks, well, it's still wrong. But we need to work with the community and the system that we've got and try to find the solutions. And I'd say having the logical side is good, but having the better understanding of everything else is so much better, and trying to be able to tie it all together to take those steps forward rather than my previous thinking, which was just, well, it's the right thing to do, therefore we should. And Liam, your questions. So I can't remember any of the statistics and numbers off the top of my head, but there are definitely studies out there that have been done by various different organizations, groups, cup manufacturers. Do a Google search and you'll find all sorts. If you're particularly interested, do drop me an email and I can send you some of the data that I found previously. But yeah, there's general information that I think, again, can't remember the exact numbers, but off the top of my head, I think it's between 20 and 30 uses of a reusable cup is when it becomes better for the environment over single use. Again, it depends on the cup. Some it's more, some it's less. And I'm just remembering that off the top of my head, it may actually be only 10. But yeah, have a look at the data, and the more you use your reusable cup, the even better it is for the planet. So as with anything we have, that even if it's plastic, like we've got Christmas coming up, while we don't encourage people to have plastic Christmas trees, if you've already got one, just keep it and reuse it. That's the best thing you can do. The best thing is reuse, and not demanding anything else. If you got it, just keep using it.
Thanks, Kerry. Laura, didn't you comment?
Thanks so much, Kerry. What an amazing presentation. And yeah, so great hearing about all the kind of intricacies of it. I wanted to go back to your point about kind of expectation management. I think there's such a lot of learning for all of us there. And I think that's often one of the hardest things about research is kind of how you convey what kind of impact may be possible as a result of research, both for yourselves and for those you're working with. So I thought there were some really interesting lessons there. And I think that kind of way you framed it at the end in terms of, you know, one of the impacts is that you've understood more about the challenges, and that then in itself will support further research and further action. It's really powerful. But yeah, and I guess what I'm echoing all the other comments saying how successful it seemed. I mean, it was incredibly impressive, both with a small grant, a short space of time, but I think also, as you acknowledged, the timing was quite challenging, you know, being after COVID, you know, with the factors around summer and tourism. So I think the fact that you had 5 businesses signing up to the program within those conditions, you know, was amazing. So I guess my question is, how you built that trust with those businesses, and so what was the I guess perceived motivation on their part to take part in it, and especially as you're saying, you know, you tried to make the kind of tally and the actual mechanism as quickly as possible, but when you're a busy business, you know, we know what it's like. And so I guess the second part of that, in terms of what was their motivation, I guess, do you feel that what was the role that the researchers played in kind of building that trust and motivating them businesses to get involved in it?
Yeah, good questions. So for engaging with the businesses to start with, there was a change in legislation that we'd produced some leaflets for, that was about the ban in single use. I think it was straws and plastic stirrers and things at that time. So we kind of used that as a gateway, where I was going around as many businesses as I could to deliver these leaflets in person, to make that initial contact. That gave me a chance to kind of scope out the businesses and which ones seemed quite engaged, which ones were like complete blackball, and you just knew it was going to go straight in the bin. And then that helped narrow it down for which ones to, again, trying to do as much of it in person as possible, because putting a face to folks and being able to gauge their response is so much easier. And also emails are far too easy to just ignore when you're a busy business owner. So going in and speaking to them and speaking to the staff and asking, you know, what kind of cups do you use, and would you be interested in joining? How do you think it might go? And right from the start, trying to get the back and forth feedback for what would work for them. As I said, we really wanted them to come forward and say to us, okay, we think this might work in our business. And we would have been happy for each business to do slightly different for what they thought would work for their particular model, because we had quite varied businesses during the trial. But unfortunately, they were just super busy. So we ended up saying, okay, here's a rough framework. If you can do that, perfect. If you want to change it slightly to suit you, by all means do. But here's something to at least start you with. The researchers came in incredibly useful by adding, we kind of christened it the researcher halo. And that they made it seem very official. While it was nice for me to go in person and speak to businesses and keep it at that ground level and try and be quite personal with everyone, having the academic researchers kind of coming in from further afield, very, fancy sounding academic institutions and everything, gave it that sort of punch that the businesses suddenly sort of sat up and thought, okay, so this is an actual project. This is an actual thing, not just this crazy litter lady going around trying to get everyone to change how they're doing things. So yeah, they really added the sort of trust factor that we weren't just trying to get them to change for the sake of it, that we were doing it as an actual proper study for proper reasons, not just being, crazy litter campaigners.
Thanks, Kerry. Though nothing wrong with that, but really interesting about I guess that dynamic around making it feel a bit more formal. And I think that's reflected in a few different projects. Even if that power is symbolic, it can be helpful. And even just bringing in external voices from outside a community whilst having that link in. I'm just acknowledging time, and so there's a few more questions, and definitely a lot more thank yous and appreciation of the work that you're doing and the impact that you've made, Kerry. But maybe what I might suggest is I'm going to do a quick, there's a little survey might pop up just to kind of capture if this has been useful. And then for those of you who might be able to stay a little bit longer, maybe Kerry, you can answer some of those final questions to reflect on, and then otherwise we'll send them on and then close off for now. But let's have a look if I can do that. It's really useful just to get a bit of a check-in about how today's been, if you've got ideas for future sessions, and any other feedback. But one of the reasons why Conversation Station developed is that we have our community of practices, which are very much peer-led, trying to be kind of a bit more just kind of raising just different discussions. But there was a lot of feedback as to wanting just to hear more about community-led research and get into some of that nuts and bolts of how people did it and those challenges. And so that's why this format has started, and it will be once every 2 months, give or take, as well. So yeah, hopefully if that's all right. And maybe a final question, I'm just looking through them all, is from Danielle again, in terms of what can we do now in Oban to get people to remember the cup? Maybe that's a nice finishing.
Yeah, very good question. Thank you, Danielle. So not just for Oban, but my top tip to try and spread the better action of using your own cup is to literally just remember your own cup and be seen using it. So the more people see other people using it, the more they'll think, oh yeah, I could have brought my cup and should have used it. I'm frustrated I haven't got it in the room with me, but not to flag any particular business, but there's a flask I've got. Like I said, this isn't the one, but the bottom half comes off as a cup. I always take my water bottle around with me anyway, but because the bottom half of it comes off the outer shell as a cup, it means I have my cup with me at all times, and it comes with a little lid in the top. So if you can find something simple like that, a little trick that makes you remember to take your cup, I don't know, put your car keys in it in the morning or something like that. Whatever works for you. But yeah, if you can find your way to remember your cup and make sure people see you using it. So there's all sorts of really nice, pretty cups that you can get out there, something nice and visible. Just, yeah, use it and make sure people see you using it. And businesses know you want to be able to use it. Even if you say, can I have it in my cup to go, please? And they say, no, we don't do that. Sorry. At least you've asked them, and it makes them think that if enough people do it, then maybe they should change that principle and start actually serving in your own cup if you ask them. So thank you, Danielle.
Amazing. I have one that folds, so you can fit it in my pocket, which is definitely, I was trying to find it, but I couldn't at the moment. Amazing. Well, I think maybe we'll round off for the official bit. But yeah, can we just say a massive once again, thank you to Kerry and all the best for all the work that you do in Oban. And thank you for joining us, and hopefully we'll catch you all on the network again.